Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
I think I've been rather angry for the last week or so.
Is that just your default response?
You want to punch something and that's not possible. Well, at least not legally.
Let's say at least it's not advisable. It's probably possible. So what are we going to do? Are we going to go over pick the bones out of this one? The game United played very well against Sunderland. I thought it was an excellent performance under the circumstances. It should have been more clinical in front of goal, but it was all about that moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, we can talk about the game. I mean, United were okay, did what needed to be done, just about. There were certainly some nervy moments near the end, weren't there? Hung on, managed to get the result, but yeah, in truth, as we said last week, all eyes were really on Eastlands because that was the one that really counted, and for 94 and a half minutes, it almost looked like United might pull off a miracle and win the title. Almost.
It was just ridiculous. I mean, after United scored, there was like a little period where we were top of the league for a bit. It was quite exciting and sort of fun, but with a sense of, this is all very well and good, but City are going to score in a minute and then that'll be it. And City scored and that was it. Except, of course, that it wasn't. There was a cruel sting in the tail, and the fat lady, having warmed up her pipes, had to put her music stand to one side and take a little breather as QPR first of all equalised, then went down to 10 men, then got themselves in front in what can only be described as a cruel twist of fate, and then because of Joey Barton's idiocy while he was getting himself off the pitch, there were 5 minutes of added time, wherein once that first City goal went in, it really felt like it was just about to happen. I got up and walked away at that point because I just couldn't watch, really.
Doom! I was watching 2 games at the same time, United on the big screen and City on the computer at the same time, and it was that period for about half an hour, I thought, after QPR went 2-1 up, where it was the worst bit, because I'd resigned myself to not winning the title. I thought once we'd lost to Eastlands, that was it. It was done. Couldn't see a way that QPR would get anything out of that game, and we had a difficult game and all of that, but 28 minutes it was between QPR going 2-1 up and City winning it with almost the last kick of the game, and they were the worst 28 minutes of the season because they went very, very slowly.
My mum has this thing where she watches football where time just speeds up for her. Like, she can't believe that the time has gone. When it gets to full time, she's like, that's impossible, it can't possibly have been 2 hours. But this was the exact opposite. There's a scene in Yellow Submarine, the animated Beatles film, where there's a thing that flashes up on the screen that says time can be misleading, a minute can last a lifetime, and then they flash the numbers 1 through 60 on the screen, each of them for 1 second, with a different bit of art on each number. And if you watch that in the correct state of mind, it takes a really long time to get through. And previously in my life, that had been the longest minute of my life, but clearly all those minutes again in that QPR game, they were the longest minutes that have ever happened to a United fan.
Yep, and that's about right, I think. And I mean, QPR played so well for so long. I mean, sure, they parked the bus, didn't they? And they defended in huge numbers, and City were wasteful. I think City had something like 40-something shots, didn't they, in the game?
They did.
An incredible amount, and QPR played with 11 men behind the ball and then 10 men behind the ball for almost all of the game. But they threw everything at it. They fought for every single challenge. Obviously, they were fighting for their own survival and their paychecks. I mean, they're all on contracts that would have been halved. But there was the pivotal moment in the game. It wasn't Joey Barton sending off. It was when Stoke equalised against Bolton, and the QPR bench found out, and they all went up like they'd scored a goal.
Yeah.
And that was communicated to the players, and they all switched off, and City scored twice.
And you really can't blame QPR for that, because the amount of energy and effort and determination they had put in to get themselves in the position they were, they worked worked every little bit of themselves out.
Oh, you can blame QPR. I'm blaming QPR. It's QPR's fault we didn't win the Premier League title. Absolutely nothing to do with throwing away 2 goals against Everton or playing 87 defenders at Eastlands or Fergie dropping Evans and Rooney for the game against Blackburn, or the utter casualness at Newcastle, or any of the other times that we've thrown away points or been beaten when we shouldn't have been. No, I'm blaming QPR, and I'm hoping they go down with no points next season.
QPR, of course, finishing the season on 37 points, and that was enough to keep them up, which means that if we had only got the points difference between us and Liverpool, we'd have stayed up. So that's something. I was left with the overwhelming feeling of pride in United's achievements this season, which I know we didn't win anything, disastrous in Europe, awful in all the cup competitions, and threw away an 8-point clear lead with a much easier run-in than City in the league. So it's weird to just be like, oh man, they gave it a good effort. But I've been thinking a lot about it. I've been thinking a lot about the points thrown away, and there's 2 things that I'd like to say about them. One, every single point we should have won and haven't won this season, you can pin on the situation with our midfield. I don't think that's an overstatement. I think if you look at all the games you just mentioned, key battles in central midfield lost. I mean, in the Blackburn at home game, this is the famous Raphael and Park central midfield partnership. So that's one thing I wanted to say. But the other thing is, it's okay to take that Everton game in isolation, or it's okay to take the Wigan game in isolation. But one of the reasons that we didn't win those games is because of the toll that the rest of the season had taken out of our players, I think. Whether in terms of the energy that Scholes had lost by the end of the season, or whether in terms of the injuries that kept key players out. We put in phenomenal amount of effort to get 8 points clear, and it's really, really unfortunate that we stuffed it up. But, ultimately, I think City were deserving champions, not the concept of City, the whole billionaire investment nonsense, but just the players they had and the efforts they put in. I think they warranted a championship, and the fact that they dug in and won it in with the last kick of the game. We've given out some of those over the years, including one particularly staggering one.
Yep, a few against City in recent years too.
Yeah, although perhaps not on this scale, but I think this basically equates to what happened against Munich, that it was a very similar thing, and we were on one end of it there and the other end of it here, and it's painful to be on the wrong end of it, but it's football, right?
Of course it's football, yeah. And I actually don't subscribe to the theory that the best team always wins the league. I mean, it's such a cliche, and I don't think anyone actually thinks about it when they say it. But having said that, City have played the best football this season. I think that's fair to say. They've scored more goals, they've led in less goals, and they've suffered, like us, with missing players at times. It's pretty key when Yaya Toure disappeared to the African Cup of Nations, and just as our injury problems for many months were key, and these things all make up a season, don't they? All the little details, and in the end, it's hard to begrudge them that, just in terms of what the team achieved. And of course, as I said when doing the chat this week on Goal with the City fans, and it's not football, it's not sport, it's fantasy football, because they have sovereign wealth, and they feel like they can spend whatever they want. And the general feeling in football at the moment is that they are going to stick 2 fingers up at Michel Platini and make no effort to comply with financial fair play and see what happens. And if that's sport, I'm not sure I want a whole lot of part of that. So in that sense, I agree with you. There's a lot to be proud of with what United have done. At times, we've played very good football, not very frequently, got to say. Got a hell of a load of points. I don't think this is the best United side Ferguson has had by some stretch, so in that sense there's an achievement to get that many points. I think quite a bit of it's to do with the poor quality of the league, but given that £500 million have been sucked out of the club over the last 6 years, and about the same amount has been poured into City in new transfers, then it's quite remarkable that the 2 clubs are on an even plane.
Yeah, absolutely, and it came down to these incredibly fine margins. One thing that happened on the last day of the season, which probably says more about the limitations of my character than anything else, was that I suddenly became massively more optimistic about next season. I had that question last week about whether United were more likely to win the league next season or drop out of the Champions League places, and I was just looking at it and thinking, however much Chelsea spend in the summer. They're either going to be managed by Dimitar or another new manager, and they finished so very, very many points behind us this season, and they've got such huge holes in their squad, and City are going to be in competition for the very best of players, if they're trying to really, really get superstar filled team. It would take a level of investment almost on the scale of the first lot of investment of Abramovich to get them back up and running, I think.
Yes. But there are signs that Abramovich will do that, of course. If they're seriously looking at the Battersea project, that's going to cost them $1 billion.
Yeah.
So chucking a couple £100 at the team to make sure that they have a team good enough to fill that is no great shakes. I think they're looking at that, and I think, as I said, I think the word has gone round that City are going to challenge financial fair play, and if City do, so will Chelsea.
Well, then you also have to get a manager that can run it all. Liverpool are obviously... I was listening to our first episode of the Rantcast, our season preview this morning, to see what we said was going to happen. We talked a lot about Liverpool and their relative strength and ability to compete for a top 4 place this season. Just seems hilarious now.
We didn't agree that they would, did we? I don't think so, no. Oh my God, they called Kenny! He should have gone after the Suarez affair. I have no sympathy for the man at all.
I have to say, I'm sure that one of the reasons he's gone is the Suarez affair, actually.
We're definitely digressing here, but the Fox Sports Group have had no worries about axing senior staff, have they, this season? So the Director of Communications has gone, quite rightly. The Director of Football has gone after wasting £100 million. That left the focus, a Director of Football has gone, the Sporting Director as well, and that has left the club and the pressure all on Kenny, who very stupidly, after Kamoli went, claimed that, oh no, they were all his decisions to buy. Oh, okay, right, you want to write out your own P45 here, and of course he was very culpable during the Suarez affair too. So there was massive focus, and they failed on the pitch. So what do you expect? No great surprise.
No, I think the combination of his, I really do think people are putting it down to their league position, but I think if he'd been more gracious throughout the season, not just the Suarez affair actually, but his whole public persona throughout this campaign, it just doesn't fit with the model of the Red Sox. If you think about the fact that they're owned by the Red Sox, basically, the same people that own the Red Sox, it just doesn't have the right image, does it? So we're talking about United's next season. I think okay, Arsenal could definitely strengthen significantly and be much more of a factor next season, but that's a big if, and they've got a lot to prove that Wenger can build a team that will genuinely challenge again.
And there's a big chance that they're going to lose Van Persie. So, for all the paper stories that you'll see coming up in the next few weeks about Van Persie being forced to run down his contract, you'll see them, of course, because they said this last year. They won't. They'll accept the money. They're financial realists at Arsenal, and Van Persie will be sold. And he'll probably go to the highest bidder, which probably means City, but unless Arsenal try and force him abroad, of course. So it looks like for a while Arsenal were being very sensible in the transfer market, and they bring Podolski in. He's got a very good record at international level, average record at club level, and looks like they're favourites from Villa. I don't think it's been signed or sealed or anything like that, but it looks like Hodgson want him, and that would bolster their midfield, however good you think he is, and so maybe they're on an upward growth curve, but they're still a long way behind United and City.
And then you're then talking about City. Spurs, I guess, I think it's very unlikely that Spurs are going to significantly invest, that they spent a lot of money. I'm sure they'll buy some players, but they're not going to be, I don't think Tottenham are going to be considerably stronger next season than they were this season.
No, and their main challenge is to keep hold of Bale and Modric, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. What the situation with Adebayor will be, and, all that stuff, is all a bit unclear at Spurs, the future, and Harry, and how well he copes with, the catastrophic end of the season that they've had. And, of course, whether they get into the Champions League or not, whether, Munich win on Saturday. So Spurs is very unlikely to... So, I think that we're extremely unlikely to drop out of the Champions League places, because there will be some investment in United's playing squad this season, and the people that are going to leave are not going to make the team worse. City will strengthen again. There's no doubt about that, right? Of course.
No doubt at all.
There's two things I want to say about that. Again, one, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be better, because a better team is not always built out of just piling more and more good players into the same team. And secondly, Mancini won this by the skin of his teeth, and he will keep the job. No question about that. But he really, really won it by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, well, he's keeping the job because Jose is staying in Madrid for another year. And yes, he won it by the skin of his teeth, but it's a year of the team gelling. They don't have the African Cup of Nations next winter. They probably won't wobble in the same way they did. So I think they'll be stronger. And if they bring in Hazard, which looks highly likely now, they've got an outstanding creative player who'll probably play in the hole, allowing Aguero to play up front on his own, and they can get rid of Tevez, who's a disruptive influence. They'll probably get rid of Zeko, who hasn't performed. They may well get rid of Balotelli, who's been a disruptive influence, and they'll spend replacing those players, but it's hard to envisage them replacing them with worse players. So I don't see City going backwards. The age profile of their squad's very, very good as well. So there's lots of positives there. They would have to really screw it up in the summer to have a worse season next year.
I said in the season preview, I can't see City winning. We both predicted United to win the league. You said by, I think, 4 or 5 points. I said by 6 points was the number that I was going for. So we were obviously wrong about that. Although it did almost happen. I said...
It did almost happen. Well, not the 5 points. Well, of course it would have been if we'd managed to win at Wigan, which we had the previous 14 times in a row, and managed to hold on to a 2-0 win against Everton for 10 minutes, then yeah, it would have happened.
4-2 win, but yeah. I said I don't see City winning the league under Mancini, and what I was talking about was his reluctance to gamble, his defensive mentality. But he has actually done a fantastic job of shedding that this season. You know, he's gone for it when he's needed to go for it in a way that he didn't the season before, because the whole focus was on getting into the Champions League. He wasn't really trying to win anything the season before. He was just trying to make sure he could get in the Champions League, then he could, you know, bring in the quality of player that would enable them to challenge for the title, and that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, and they play some very expansive football this season. I mean, there's plenty of games when they've averaged over 3 goals a game at home, haven't they? And the away record was a problem for a while. They sorted that one out just in time, and I suspect they'll be strong again next season. I mean, of course they're going to be very strong. I mean, and that's the benchmark. Around 90 points is what it's going to take, and that's what United have to aim for. I don't think the noises coming out of Old Trafford are quite right at the moment in terms of putting together a team that will do that, but I guess that's the challenge for the months ahead.
There was a goosebump moment for me in the United's awards ceremony, which, my goodness, that thing's interminable. But there was one heck of a moment when Sir Alex, somewhat under the influence, gave a really, really electrifying speech about him being a winner, and about how when we'd lost the league to Leeds United and Liverpool fans were getting player signatures and then ripping them up, and Fergie said, "Remember that, lads, remember that," when, you know, and he was saying about the Sunderland fans, you know, jeering the United youngsters, remember that, remember what that felt like. And so, you know, that was kind of exciting, because that kind of Fergie's going to be hungrier and all that stuff, you know, which I think is real. But he's getting so much older now. You know, if he was 5 years younger, I would not have any worries whatsoever about him rising to the challenge and seeing off City, just like he has every other time that his crown's been threatened. But I think it's different this time. But that was really exciting to see. And for me, the whole of next season rests on what he does about the central midfield.
Yeah, completely. And I'm not sure United are going to fix it in the right way, I have to say. And that might sound a bit negative, but I'd be really, really surprised if we do. I actually think that they'll go into next season with hopes resting on Scholes managing to last a campaign, which clearly isn't going to happen. I mean, he tired quite badly after 16 games, so imagining that he's going to play 50 next season is just not going to happen. And so they're going to go in with the same strategic problem. Anderson, Cleverley, Fletcher all have to stay fit, and it seems quite unlikely that that's going to happen given history.
Well, I don't think they're expecting Fletcher to play a part. Whatever they're saying, I think it's really unlikely that Fletcher's going to play any part at all next season, or anything more than a bit part. And Fergie's not stupid. He's seen what's happened to Scholes. He knows what's going to happen. The idea that he's pinning hopes on... I mean, Cleverley, actually, I think it's reasonable to expect him to stay fit, or at least it's a reasonable hope that he will. Anderson, obviously, is just ridiculous too. So we're in more dire need in that position than we've ever been before. Well, maybe not ever, but we've been talking about the problems in central midfield for several years now, and this is the worst it's ever been. This is the most desperate it's ever been.
Yeah, I actually think one of the problems is we have a lot of players there, and it doesn't feel like it sometimes, does it? But realistically, who's he used in central midfield this season? Scholes, Carrick, Anderson, Cleverley, Fletcher when he was fit, Giggs, Park, that's an awful lot, and he would have to make some big calls about some big players there in order to shed the number of players in that position in order to spend money on bringing someone else in. I'm not sure that he's prepared to do it. I mean, it would mean dumping Anderson, and that's 5 years of Ferguson saying he's the next Scholes. It'd mean dumping Park, who's a favourite of his, and I think he'd be very reluctant to do that. Scholes and Giggs have already signed new contracts. He's backing Cleverley to the hilt. Fletcher they can't dump because of all his problems. I mean, you're right, he probably won't be part of the squad, but we'll see. And Carrick's had the best season for 3 years.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to make any change there, and I think the player they bring in is going to be of a more attacking, either wide or centrally attacking, and that's why they're looking at Kagawa. It's why they're looking at Hazard, only in hope that somehow he decides to choose United over the money, which doesn't normally prove to be a winning formula. And so I think that's what they'll do, and I think they'll go with the same central midfield. And the real change might be in how they deploy Rooney, and Rooney might turn back into a central striker, and they'll concentrate on scoring goals again, and he'll probably get bags of them, and they'll try and bring in that player who plays in the hole.
It'd be very interesting to see, but I guess by the time we reconvene after the Euros and do the season preview rantcast for next season, we'll have a long discussion about how all this is going to shake out. We'll have a slightly more celebratory second half of the show. We'll look back on some of the more exciting highlighted type moments of the season. But before we do that, let's get really depressed. Ed, Q3 results are out. Go.
Yeah, actually Q3 is normally quite dull, and this proved to be the case. There's nothing massively surprising in these. So if you look at year-on-year figures, there's a growth in commercial revenue, and a lot of that's to do with the DHL deal coming in. There's a very small growth in media income, a slight dip in matchday income, and that was to do with the amount of games relative to the previous financial year. And I suppose the headline figure that everyone is looking for is how much interest has been paid financial year to date, so that's 9 months we're talking about, £42.5 million, plus about £28 million worth of bond buyback in that time period as well, so £71 million spent on debt-related costs over the 9 months of the year to date. Interesting that the Glazers actually paid a £2 million premium to buy back those bonds and on the price that was set to sell them, so yeah, that's Glazeronomics for you. Buy back debt at a more expensive rate than you sold it. So that's Q3 really. Nothing really exciting. It's more of the same. It's more of a huge amount of money disappearing out of the club. Lots more than we ever spend on players like a central midfielder.
Yeah, it's really upsetting. Why would they buy back debt more expensive than they sold it?
Because the way bonds work, they're like a fancy IOU note, but they move up and down in the market in the same way a share might when people buy or sell them. So they've actually risen in value. You can buy them on the open market. I should say also, this isn't like paying back a loan. So they bought the IOU notes back, but they haven't retired them, so they can be sold back to the market at any point.
So they sit there and control it, and then if they can make some money out of selling it, they sell it?
They could do, in theory. I mean, it's like a very flexible way of getting you money if they needed it. It's a contingency plan. So in any case, I mean, they have not retired it. It doesn't mean they will exercise the right to sell it. Doesn't mean they won't either. I mean, I guess everyone's waiting for the long-famed IPO to come along, and it might be the autumn, it might not. We haven't seen the prospectus yet, so it's certainly not in any time in the next 6 weeks. It might well be the autumn if they think the markets have calmed down by then. They might not have done, of course, because the Eurozone is pretty volatile at the moment, if you've been watching the news.
At Nico01 says, can we discuss in a bit more in-depth what an IPO will mean to the club in the short and the long term, and whether or not it's a smart move by the Glazers? So I'm going to give you my potted understanding of what it means, which you can then fill in the gaps. They're going to sell a chunk of the club, not the whole club, but a chunk of the club, and they're going to sell it on a market in the Far East in order to generate capital, but without reducing too much of their control of United, because they're going to sell it whereby 2 shares buys you the effective voting rights of 1 share. And the reason for doing this is to pay down some of the debt by generating some capital. Is that right?
Yeah, that's probably right, yeah. Dual share structure, so they'll have A and B preference shares. It's not uncommon. It's generally frowned upon in Europe. Google, for example, is listed in this way. So it's not out the realms of the norm, generally frowned upon here. It also means that you have to offer an attractive dividend, because if investors aren't going to have any say over the control and running of the club because they don't have any voting rights, they certainly will only be buying it to make money. So is it a good thing for United? Well, in theory, if they raise a significant chunk of money and can buy back all the bonds, United could be largely debt-free. Certainly investors would expect that because they expect a bigger pile of cash with which to pay dividends. Doesn't mean United will be totally debt-free. I very much doubt there'll be anything in the prospectus that says that, and Glazers do tend to run their businesses with leverage. So there's that. The questions are then, if United are more debt-free, how much tax will United be paying? Because of course they get a tax benefit from being in debt effectively because it reduces the profitability of the club. How much dividend will they have to pay to the shareholders? What's the premium going to be? How much can they actually IPO for? This dual share structure didn't prove attractive last time they floated it around the market. Float in the loose sense of the word there. So will they oversubscribe on the IPO? Will they get the pop they want out of the share value and all of that? So a lot of questions. In theory, it's a good move for the Glazer family because they potentially get to use the club to pay back as much debt as possible, pay back whatever debt they've got themselves. I should say as well, they'll be selling their shares, so it doesn't guarantee at all that they go and use that money to buy back debt. There's absolutely no legal reason why they would have to at all. It's just they'll probably be expected to by investors to be part of the prospectus. So a lot of question marks basically is a summation of that.
It's interesting stuff, and it'll make a big difference to our future. Okay, so I think we can all agree that the Glazers have been terrible for Manchester United, and that Glazeronomics has meant that we're punching way below our weight. There is one positive side effect of Glazeronomics, and that was I asked listeners today for their awards in various different categories of their own choosing, and at Tim O'Bevan says, best second coming, Sir Paul Scholes. Now, the moment that Scholes came back to United, filled with questions, but one person for whom it was just a sheer moment of joy is one of the Rantcast's longest term supporters, our friend Awate. I spoke to him about the return of Paul Scholes. Clearly the most extraordinary single moment of this season was just before the Manchester City game. Even though he's on the phone outside the recording studio right now, we have to talk to Awate about the return of Paul Scholes. How did you feel at that exact moment in time, and how do you think his season went?
I found out about it maybe 15 to 30 minutes later than everyone else because I was avoiding all phone contact and I was walking down to my mate's house to watch the match and logged on Twitter on the way, saw that he was returning, saw he was on the bench, and just it was a mixture of windiness and cold and the fact that Scholes was returning. I think a few tears did fall from my eyes when I was walking to my mates, and I was, no words can really explain it. It's just so much love there between me and someone I don't know just because of this sport called football,
It's an incredible thing, and you were there when he hung up his boot. I guess you never thought you'd see him again in the United shirt, right?
Never. And I'd been watching every single reserve match during half-time and before the matches. You could see him giving the reserve players a little talk to, and during one half-time he actually done kick-ups across the whole side of the pitch, and I was just clapping while watching the stream, just going, oh my God, he can still do it, he's doing kick-up. But I never thought I'd see him again, and we have for 6 months, and we will for another year. So I'm just, whatever it says about Glazeronomics and the bunch of evil expletives we have running us, Paul Scholes is back, and for me he's the greatest player of all time, so it won't do any harm.
So what's your number one Paul Scholes moment of the season then?
Every goal. Scholes 22 can actually tackle, which is quite amazing. Scholes 18 couldn't tackle he could. I mean, it was a big misconception, but since he's come back, his tackling has improved. It was a big misconception that he couldn't tackle at all. But his game wasn't based on that, by the way. You never see anyone saying, oh, Messi can't tackle. Paul Scholes was an attacking midfielder. He didn't have to tackle. Roy Keane done it for him. But he can tackle now, and that's amazing.
Definitely check out Elements, which drops today. You can get new music from Awate. Very exciting stuff. So Ed, Paul Scholes, how's that been for you?
Well, it's been great to see a legend return to the club, an overused word of course, but not in Paul Scholes' case, and for many of the 16 games he's played, he's been absolutely outstanding. All the stats are great, pass completion ratios and all that. He's dovetailed with Carrick wonderfully well. He's brought the best out in Carrick, of course, and it was the right move at the right time. I mean, one that I pretty much thought was an act of desperation. It was, but it's an act of desperation that worked, largely speaking. He hasn't been great in the last few weeks. He wasn't very good at the Etihad, he wasn't very good against Everton, he wasn't very good against Sunderland really, and I thought he looked a lot tireder than he had done 3 months ago when he came back, and I guess that's what you get with a 38-year-old, isn't it? And so it's been wonderful. I don't see it as any kind of long-term solution, and next season I think we'll get much more of what we had before. So
you just can't resist, can you? You've got to end it on a downer. It's like, oh.
It's not a downer, it's realism. It's been great to have him back, but it was a short-term measure that's turning into a much longer-term measure.
I guess that's a reasonable point to make at this juncture. It's just a shame because I of course you're right, and as glad as I am that he'll still be in the playing staff, I really hope they're taking seriously the idea of him playing 25 games next season, not all the games that exist next season. Because you're right, he did look really tired by the end of the season, but for that period where he was imperious, it was absolutely vital to United's success on the pitch this season. The fact that we got so close to the title was in no small measure down to the fact that Scholes came back, because Scholes and Carrick became the absolutely literally indispensable midfield partnership for United. As soon as it wasn't the two of them, it was disaster.
Yes. I mean, it also precipitated a change in United's playing style. I mean, I guess that had happened before then. The change happened after United got spanked by City in the game we dare not speak about. But I mean, started the season in a very open, flowing, one-touch pass and move style. End of the season, attempting to retain possession as much as possible. Very, very different, and a lot of that was to do with Paul Scholes. It's inconceivable that United would have got as many points without Paul Scholes, because we'd have been given the ball away while trying to play a possession game.
Not a good combination, is it? At RSPLMUFC says, for him, best value for money this season, Scholes' boots from Scot Sports Direct. Apparently just walked in with an old pair of boots around his neck when he wanted to come back into the club. One of those stories that will go down in legends. It's time to start talking about the big categories for our Rantcast End of Season Awards. And before we do that, I think we should look back on the season preview and see how we did. As we said, we both predicted United to win. Your top four in predictions was as you put on the blog, and you can see that last season you got an awful lot of predictions right. This season, not so good from you, was it?
Not so good. No, quite a lot of near misses in my defence, but yeah, 4 out of 29 predictions correct. Yeah. That's Dalglish territory. I think I might sack myself after that one.
But I like the fact that some of your more outrageous predictions, some of the predictions which are almost harder to predict, you got spot on, like the winners of the Europa League and the player of the season in the Premier League. I thought that was kind of interesting that happened. But we also did some predictions on the show. One of the things I said was, how many goals will Anderson score this season? And this was in the glow of the post Charity Shield glow, where we both were like excited about Anderson and Cleverley and how it seemed to be working. And you went for 6 goals from Anderson, and I suggested it might be more than 6 goals from Anderson. It was, of course, 1. Well done, Ando. Unlucky there. The other thing in terms of our central midfield, I asked you the question, will us looking back at the end of the season, will we say that Michael Carrick has had a good season or not? And you said, no, I think that this will be it for Carrick, and by the end of this season, he'll probably be on his way.
So much for predicting things. Interesting, though, that he really didn't play until November. Fergie agreed with me. Of course, we know that Fergie listens, so maybe that's why Carrick didn't play until November.
Clearly, but then actually Carrick's a pretty good shout for our Player of the Year, and I believe he is United Rant, the website's official Player of the Year, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I put. Yeah, not everyone agreed with me.
Oh, really? Really?
But yeah, I thought over the piece, given all the problems in midfield, yeah, I think if he hadn't performed so well, we would have got absolutely nowhere near. And of course, I think I put 4 or 5 players on 8 points and Carrick on 9, and big shout outs obviously to Valencia and Evans and Rooney, who scored 34 goals this season without really excelling, and of course Scholes.
My player of the season would have to be Carrick as well, I think, because he's the one with the longest period of consistent performance under his belt out of all of them. And that's not the whole season. We don't have a player of the season this year. We have player of patches of the season. I think Nani and Cleverley were the player of the first couple of months of the season, or the first month or so. Then it's very difficult. Nobody really played well until Carrick emerged onto the scene. Then there's a period of the season where De Gea was clearly our best player for a period of time, and then Valencia absolutely exploded into form on his return from injury, but then even he dipped very slightly at the very end of the season, and I guess Rooney is probably our player of the latter part of the season, but overall Carrick's the one, really. Carrick made the most difference the most times. Oh, Johnny Evans as well, absolutely huge shout for Johnny Evans this season.
The interesting thing about Evans is that it almost felt like he was always filling in for someone. So Rio was injured in the early part of the season, and then of course Nemanja from December onwards. But he's played a huge amount of games and been extremely consistent, and he solved a lot of the problems that he'd had before, where he was exposed by physical players. He's not without a mistake still, but this is a massive step up in terms of quality from him. Unfortunately, when Ferguson said he was the best defender in the country, he had that game against Everton where he was at least partially at fault for 3 of the goals, or so a lot of the other members of the back four, but he certainly made mistakes in 3 of those goals. But a huge season from him, and it's a massive bonus for United going forward that Evans has made that step up at the same time as Phil Jones and Chris Smalling haven't had the best of seasons, either of them. A lot of it affected by injury and burnout in Jones's case, and also being shifted around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the other things we went for a prediction for in the season preview was how many appearances between them will Ravel and Pogba make in the first team, and you said 4 would be the number between them, and I agreed with that, or I said it might even be less than 4. It was in fact 9 substitute appearances, 7 for Pogba, 2 Carling Cup substitute appearances for Ravel.
I would say that a lot of those substitute appearances for Pogba were Ferguson's attempt to try and curry favour with the player. I mean, maybe I'm just being a cynic there, but I think 4 is probably about right.
But I think one thing that's sort of sad about this season is that we're probably not going to be talking about Ravel Morrison or Paul Pogba in the season preview next season, are we?
No, I mean, Pogba's not been cleared up. He's playing in the United reserve side that plays the Manchester City Elite Development Squad in the Manchester Senior Cup final Thursday night. And so, interesting, Pogba's alarm goes off. What does this mean? Is he staying? Is he going? He's playing in the reserves, but he didn't feature in any of the games in the first team at the end of the season because he was injured and wouldn't play again for the rest of the season, so Ferguson told us.
It's all very mysterious. At Dylan MUFC 14 says his choice for song of the season, talking of Pogba, easily my rendition of Should I Stay or Should I Go? Oh, thank you. You're too kind.
That will be the financial arrangement again.
Clearly. At Mark_Pud says, any chance you could give me a shout out on the pod? He's running the Great Manchester Run for the Christie. So if you go to justgiving.com/MarkPud, that's MarkPud, and if you feel like sponsoring a long-time Rantcast listener who's running the Great Manchester Run, absolutely the very best of luck from both me and Ed.
Yeah, definitely. Also, the whole FC United squad are running the Great Manchester Run for various charities as well, I noticed. Not that we cover a lot of FC United on this pod, but they since I'm digressing, they had a very good season, just lost out in the playoff final, so didn't get promoted to the Blue Square Bet North, so they'll still be in the division below that, so effectively sort of Division 7, but they had a very, very good season, and best of luck to them, still raising money for their new stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, I know a lot of United fans who really don't like FC United, and I sort of understand it, but I'm definitely not one of them. I have a lot of sympathy for what they did and the reasons why they did it.
They're doing it the right way. They're not getting themselves into debts. They're a club that works entirely for the fans. I mean, there's been some very unsavoury episodes this year when their matches have been moved around and they've stood up and backed the fans, and just exactly the opposite of everything United does. So there's lots to admire about that club, I think, and I can understand why people, because somehow I think they see them as they gave up on United, and of course a lot of those fans did, but for a very specific reason.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that they probably don't have at FC United of Manchester is the level of absolutely outstanding moments of beautiful football that we have at Manchester United. One of the ways we've been able to follow all that this season has been the emergence of my favourite new blog on the internet, Beautifully Read, which is at beautifullyread.co.uk, and we spoke to Sean to get his top 3 beautiful moments of the season. Joined now by Sean from Beautifully Red, who eagle-eared listeners will remember was on the show just the other day. Sean, it's lovely to have you back on the show, and what better reason to bring you back than to give us your top 3 beautiful moments of the season?
Yes, hello, thank you for having me back. It's my top 3. In order that they happened, number 1 has to be Nani versus City in the Community Shield. Number 2, I'm going to go for Big Dave against Chelsea, which turned his season around. And finally, I'm going to go for Tony V versus Blackburn, not just for the goal, but it gave us some belief. The celebrations, his smile in the interview afterwards, I think that all adds up to something pretty beautiful.
Yeah, those little 2 words or one number repeated twice, 50-50.
Yeah, it was a brilliant interview, and the smile just topped it off.
Absolutely. So basically what you're saying is number 1 beautiful moment of the season, Antonio Valencia smiling.
I think so, yeah. We might as well, haven't we? As there's no silverware, we'll give it to his smile.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Sean.
No worries.
By the way, if listeners want to check any of that out, if you go to beautifullyred.co.uk, you'll find all of that in GIF form. And I understand you're running some sort of Beautifully Red, beautiful moment of the season vote.
Yes, there will be 8, maybe 10 options that you can have a vote on, and we'll see if we can get a nice winner. See if it is Tony V's smile that's chosen by Twitter.
Brilliant. My vote's for that Community Shield goal. That was something else. But of course, my overall beautiful moment of the season has been the emergence of Beautifully Red. So check it out at beautifullyred.co.uk. Excellent stuff. And yeah, I really love that Mata save. Absolutely love it. That's his number 2, but might just be my number 1. We've had a question from @Will_Lum. Best podcast closing song of the season.
Well, I thought it was my Dutch rapping when we played Ajax. Actually, I thought it was top quality stuff.
That was definitely worse than anything I've sung on the podcast. Definitely. I've got 2. One, I'm pretty sure we've played out with Flame On by Awate at least once this season. Or that might have been last season. But if it was this season, that's definitely mine. Otherwise, mine, I think, is Elbow, One Day Like This. That's a song I associate with Manchester United and really love. But it's always nice to hear that song which has Gary Pallister's name in it, because not enough pop songs mention Gary Pallister.
There's very few. It's a rarity, you could say.
@Coombison says that the United meme of the season has to be the gurning face of Phil Jones. I don't think there's going to be too many people arguing with that.
Remarkable range that he has. Really very remarkable.
More skin than he needs on his face. That's the reason for it. That's definitely why it happens.
Yeah, he's going to look like Popeye when he's older.
He already looks like Popeye now. @Darren Solomon suggests that the tweet of the year by a footballer was Rooney's recent tweet to Piers Morgan, which we won't read out loud because there's no way of saying it and maintaining your clean tag on iTunes. But I will say he's wrong. Clearly the tweet of the year by a footballer. And in fact, my vote for United meme of the season, every time Danny Welbeck scored, you could guarantee that there's at least 4 or 5 people who would retweet the "My boy Welbs, zup zup, say nada" tweet from Ravel, which is my tweet of the season.
Very good. Talking of tweets, apparently Rio Ferdinand believes that he's been bent over, made to grab his ankles, and the FA have used no lube while shafting him.
Yes, he has favourited your incredibly graphic and unpleasant tweet there, Ed.
Very, very odd behaviour from Rio, but there you go. Obviously caught a moment in Rio's life.
The thing is about it, which I like, is he didn't retweet it because he can't really do that, you know? He just quietly added it into his favourites to hope that some people would pick up on the fact that that's how you had articulated extremely well how he felt about the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think when you've got 2 million followers, you can't get away with that and it not be noticed, yeah.
And talking of Darren, he's a person who covers a lot of stuff about the academy and reserves, and I certainly don't give that the attention that I would need to speak about it in a really educated way on the podcast. Seven Cantonars podcast does an excellent job of covering all levels of United, and of course I know, Ed, you watch a lot of the youth team and the reserves, but I asked Darren about the season that they've had at those 2 levels, and this is what he had to say. Joined now by Darren. Darren, I was about to start listing your credits, but I'm just going to say I'm joined by Darren from Twitter because you're an important fixture of my Manchester United supporting life, your Twitter account is.
That's a very, very embarrassing thing of you to say, Paul. I was going to say Darren of Twitter because there aren't any other Darrens that you follow on Twitter, and I've not come across one yet, but thanks, I guess, for that.
Where can people find you on the internet in general, Darren?
So yeah, most of my ramblings come on Twitter, but other than that, I like to write the odd thing on Stretford End, stretford-end.com. They've got a Twitter account as well, and then more recently, I've been putting the odd piece on the Huffington Post, which is quite nice. But I'm on Facebook and I curate the Stretford End Facebook page.
One of the things that your Twitter account is invaluable for is coverage of the academy and the reserves. Let's do these one at a time. What kind of season's it been for the academy?
It's been one of learning, really. We had a lot of first-team scholars join them this year. So obviously last season we had the fantastic FA Youth Cup winning side, and most of them being second years at the time have now progressed up to the reserves. So there was a whole raft of new players joining that age group under Paul McGuinness, and most of them physically were quite small. So the season started with them getting bullied by quite a few teams, and literally, I know it's a bit of a football cliche, but played off the pitch. As the season went on, they realised that actually technically they're quite good, and they can outplay a lot of the teams they come up against. So in the FA Youth Cup, which they took seriously, they got to the semi-final of the competition, in fact, where they lost over 2 legs at Chelsea, but they had a fabulous cup run, including a huge win away at Swansea and a 97th minute goal at home to Charlton in the quarterfinals. In the league, they didn't do as well. They came mid-table and they went from about November through to April without a win. But obviously the academy rules dictate that you have to shuffle the players around and ensure everyone gets as much game time as possible. So it's as much about development as opposed to winning at that age. But a strange season, but a good one nevertheless. Some good football played, and there are some very talented players in that age group.
Matt Starley won the Player of the Season award at the United Awards the other night. Is that your shout as well?
It probably wouldn't have been. I think Matt's deserved his award in that obviously the coaches feel that he was their young player of the year. I think Matt's had a very, very strong 2012 as other players got injured. I thought he started quite slowly. He was one of those that was almost a little overawed by coming up against bigger players. I probably would have gone for either Luke McCulloch or Tyler Blackett. Luke's the captain. Both of them are second years. I thought Tyler at left back had an exceptional season going forward and defensively. I just think with Tyler, he needs to believe in himself a little bit more. I don't think he realises quite how good he is. As for Luke, big guy, wins everything, but equally comfortable on the ball, and they both have very good seasons.
The reserves, of course, won all before them pretty much, didn't they?
Yeah, they've had a fabulous season.
Who have your standout performers been?
Quite a tough one because so many players have dropped down from the first team, and a few have come up from the academy. But I think Michael Keane, who won Reserve Player of the Year, was he definitely deserved it. He was incredibly consistent, and he's moved in from right back to centre back this season. He looks much more comfortable there, and in fact, he used to play there as a schoolboy for United. But as he's grown and as his physique has got bigger, he's got much more belief in himself, and obviously that time at right back has definitely helped him to improve when he's on the ball. So he's not just good at bringing the ball out of defence, but he sees the right passes to play. He's had a really consistent year, pretty much never present in the side. Could have been any one of 5 really who won that award. I know Larnell Cole and Jesse Lingard were nominated, but William Keane's got 18 goals in the season, and David Petrucci has had a very good season as well, coming back from injury. He's been injury-free for a whole year now and has been superb.
Anyone you think is going to make a big impact on the first team next season out of the reserves this season?
In a word, no. That's not because they're not talented, but I think they've still got learning to go. I think most of them will probably go out on loan. I think that'd be the sensible decision. If we were looking for any to step up, I guess Will Keane, depending on which strikers leave the club, and if we sign any other strikers, he could be 4th choice. I think I'd prefer him to go out on loan. Other than that, in terms of the players who've been out on loan, some of them could, if Fergie deems them good enough. I know Ollie Norwood has done very well, although I'm still on the fence with him, but I think he's certainly been involved in the first team recently in terms of training, and I know he's got a new contract offer on the table. But I don't think I'd expect many to join the first team group next year, not yet anyway.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this end of season Rantcast Spectacular. We're probably not allowed to call our own show Spectacular, but everybody follow Darren on Twitter. It's a terrible mistake if you're not doing exactly that already. Thanks, Paul. I think I'm allowed to call your podcast Spectacular, and it certainly is. Thanks for having me on. All right. What's your Twitter handle, Darren? It's my name. It's at Darren Salomon. So thank you very much indeed for that, Darren. We've had a vote for a category. Most tedious saga. Is it Schneider? Is it Pogba? That's from at Coombison again.
Pretty tedious, the both of them, and they've probably gone on equally as long now. I think we've dumped the Schneider one finally. There's been very few newspaper stories about it this summer because no one believes it's true at all. So yeah, that was very tedious last summer. And Pogba has been going on for about 6 months now, hasn't it? Yeah, so that will be done shortly. 2. Of course, you can throw Ravel Morrison in there. That was a saga for a while, wasn't it? And strange stories going around this week that he might be released by West Ham at the end of the season.
Yeah, so sad. Apparently that's not true, but who knows? That's a saga for another club to worry about, isn't it? At Man United 24 asks us what we think the best United blog ending bafflingly with the number of 24 of the season is.
Well, yeah, I think it's Rant 24, the little known... I guess it's got to be Man United 24.
It's almost like he invented a category in order for us to give him an award. I don't know how he would have done that.
What does the 24 stand for? That's what I want to know.
I always thought that he was a big fan of Darren Fletcher, but he has made this very clear. It's not that. It's about the fact that it's Manchester United 24 hours a day. That's where it came from originally. But yeah, nothing to do with the boy Fletch. Darren came back to us with best non-assisting pass that should have been an assist of the season, and he suggested Carrick versus Bolton. I hope that you can all picture that in your mind's eye, but it was the through ball to end all through balls, which Danny Welbeck somehow managed not to put in the back of the net.
Bent it round about 6 Bolton defenders and took them all out of the game. Yeah, fine moment. Some great individual moments this season, even if it hasn't been a classic United season. And Valencia's goal was voted goal of the season by United supporters, and he also won player of the season, voted for by his fellow pros and by the fans. But I think we had a quick chat about this a few weeks ago, didn't we? And we were sort of pontificating about some of these things. I think my favourite goal of the season is still the one in the Charity Shield, so late on in the Charity Shield to get United back into the game and 2-2, and before United won it dramatically, and just a wonderful tiki-taka one-touch team goal that promised so much, and of course that died away in with Cleverley and Anderson's injury, many of them, but that's probably still my favourite goal of the season.
An absolutely glorious goal, but completely magical, not just tiki-taka, but 2 between the legs or behind the legs passes, just 2 in the same move. Unnecessarily beautiful goal that was. And on the subject of goals, at the end of every episode of the Can They Score podcast, one of the guests has the honour of describing their favourite goal. So one of my favourite guests from the Can They Score podcast is at Tom Patterson. We spoke to Tom about his favourite goal of the season. So in tribute to the Can They Score favourite goals feature, I wanted to ask you, Tom, what's your favourite goal this season?
Well, I was torn as usual. I was quite tempted by Nani's stunning goal in the Community Shield, to our second goal in the link up with Cleverley, but I've gone for significance over actual tactics and skills, and I've gone for Giggs against Norwich. Not the prettiest goal, sort of stuck in with the side of his foot after a ball in from Ashley Young, but on his 900th appearance, that kind of thing that Ryan Giggs in his time at Manchester United, it's just what we do. And I think for an explosion, exhilaration of pleasure and enjoyment and adrenaline that only really Manchester United managed to give as a football fan, I think that was a perfect moment. So for me, Ryan Giggs, winning goal at Carrow Road.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the moment when Giggs put the ball in the back of the net against Norwich and the crowd went absolutely ballistic. Felt like we were going to be champions, Ed.
It did, so long ago. Giggs went mental. I hadn't seen him go that mental for many a year. There was some real passion there.
Sean at Expertchi, who we heard from earlier, says the best header of the season, and he just linked me to an animated gif of Nemanja Vidic destroying Leon Osman and about 27 other people that weren't even there, with a header of such force and power and determination that somewhere in the world that ball is still flying through the air.
Have it! It was like Michael Jordan doing a slam dunk from the halfway line, except he was heading a ball. He seemed to never come down as he flew through the back of Osman and incidentally took the ball at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Not like Michael Jordan in real life either. Michael Jordan in like NBA Jam or something, who travelled for an absolutely unfeasible amount of time. So go on then, Ed. Your player of the season is Michael Carrick. Your goal of the season is the goal in the Community Shield. And I kind of want to give Tony V my player of the year, but I can't. I've got to give it to Carrick out of sensibleness. And I can't disagree with you about goal of the season either. Although honourable mention to Ashley Young for his 3 or 4 identical goals in the shortlist for goal of the season. He really loves to cut inside and to curl an absolute peach into the top right-hand corner, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think the one against Arsenal was the best of those, having reviewed them all. And finally, I mean, I don't know if there's a category for these awards or not, just the moment, and it followed months of unpleasantness with Patrice Evra, and obviously he was racially abused at Anfield by Luis Suarez, and then there was a whole drama about the hearing and the result, and then United beat Liverpool after having lost to them in the FA Cup a couple of weeks previously, and Evra went mental in front of the Stretford end, and incidentally Luis Suarez. An awful lot of pressure and passion came out in that moment.
Absolutely, totally and utterly glorious, because my worst moment this season was not the 6-1 defeat at City, and honestly it wasn't even the City winning the league with the last kick of the game, which it probably should have been. My worst moment of the season was that game against Liverpool, and how ugly it was, that and the time that the Chelsea fans booed Rio Ferdinand. Just the sheer vitriol and ignorance on display, you know, it was heartbreaking, and to see that moment of redemption, of, you know, triumph on the sporting field, that the whole build up with the handshake before the game, and the rage, the fact that Patrice Evra decided he was going to take it out on Rio Ferdinand by accident, sent him spinning round and smashed his head into the floor, which is quite good, because otherwise they'd both have been sent off, I think, for double teaming Suarez in some horrible WWF wrestling move. But yeah, just the redemption, the fact that we won that game, the triumph of good versus evil, it was a heck of a moment, and it was brilliant to see Patrice going justifiably mental.
Yes, I think so. Aside from being vindicated, of course, I talked about Dalglish being sacked. I would put a large amount of money on Suarez not being at Anfield after the summer.
Yeah, no, I guess it depends who comes in, doesn't it? But there's a pretty good chance of that.
I think the owners would like a clean slate.
Oh, but I mean, he's their best player.
No, surely not. And Andy Carroll's in the England squad. He's got to be the best striker in the country, surely.
I'm really trying to put off talking about the England squad as long as possible. So go on then, Ed. What was your apotheosis? What was your lowest moment of the season?
It's got to be a bit of a cliche, but it was losing 6-1 at City. Aside from the moment that Aguero slammed the ball into the net after those 28 minutes of agony against Sunderland the other day. Yeah, the 6-1 was horrible. And another one that was a real low was the match against Blackburn Rovers on Boxing Day, when United were just abysmal.
Yeah.
Just truly abysmal. And at that moment, it looked like the wheels had truly fallen off, and United were going to go nowhere in the season. There was a huge amount of injuries. Points were being dropped. Everyone said City were going to run away with the title. The financial results were terrible, and everything was. It was just a period of utter doom, I think, and it kind of culminated in being beaten by Blackburn Rovers, who would boss them with a manager that none of the team wanted to play for, and none of the fans wanted either.
Yeah, no, that was pretty rough. The way the team came back from the 6-1, strung a bunch of 1-0s together, totally changed the way they played and just dug it out. It was really impressive. And the way they came back from those results against Newcastle and Blackburn when the injuries took their worst toll. And even the way they came back from we haven't even mentioned, this is supposed to be a season roundup, we haven't even mentioned the European situation. United's worst performance in Europe that I can remember since the days when we weren't allowed to play Dennis Irwin because he was considered a foreigner. It just really abysmal failings in Europe.
In 2 competitions.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of all merges into one ugly mistake, doesn't it, United's European campaign? And actually, I think unless we don't buy anyone of any quality whatsoever in the summer, I think there's almost no way we can fail to have a better European campaign next season.
I hope that there wouldn't be so much conceit. I mean, it was obvious. I mean, it was from the first match onwards, and United were in good form. They'd won 4 or 5 on the spin in the Premier League before playing Benfica, and Ferguson made 6 changes to the side and completely disrupted the rhythm, got away with a 1-1 draw there, but it seemed to happen with every selection, didn't it? And almost felt like Ferguson believed that United were going to walk the group. I have to say, that infamous podcast where I said that we'd win all 6 games as well, so I guess that one followed through to the management and the team as well, and,
yeah.
And they really weren't good enough to play with conceit, and then a different type of conceit with a Europa League campaign where we just didn't care basically, and then met an inspired Bilbao side who were much better than us over 2 legs.
Yeah, and I maintain that we were right not to care about the Europa League, and we definitely wouldn't have sustained any kind of league title challenge had we invested in that. But also I don't know how we would have coped if we'd stayed in the Champions League, because we fell apart completely at the seams, having to play Wigan once in midweek. We were woefully under-equipped equipped in central midfield to deal with a 2 games a week end campaign. It was really interesting, actually, the fact that both City and United were out of everything by the time the league title was decided. It all kind of really came to a focused point at the end of the season where the league was absolutely everything. And I guess that contributed to how much it hurt for United fans when we didn't win it, and they did.
Yeah, in many ways, given the selection Ferguson went for, both in Europa League and before that in the Champions League, it was like we threw away Europe in order to have a run at the Premier League this season. Imagine we were still playing in Europe. Scholes couldn't have played every week, so we'd be rotating Giggs and Scholes alongside Carrick, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely, which worked so well whenever we had to do it. Giggs and Scholes both signed contract extensions, both be here next season. I really, really, really hope that their role is significantly reduced. Giggs' role has been significantly reduced this season, but it's been difficult whenever he has come into the side. And, the summer might do him good, he might have a proper break, but on the other hand, he might end up playing at the blinking Olympics or something.
Actually, I think with Giggs, it's not so much the physical side. He seems to be in such great condition. He doesn't seem to have suffered in the same way as Scholes has. And I think he seems physically able to play games, although, Ferguson's obviously used him very sparingly. I think the quality's dipping quite significantly. But
that's got to be physiological, right? Because, that's got to be about the ageing process.
It always is, but he can maintain the physical aspect of the game. The technical aspect has gone. That's the difference, I think.
Yes, whereas Scholes basically is the technical aspect of football. He's like the living personification of what's possible for a human being to do with the football technique. There's a moment that we've not mentioned in terms of glorious moments, and that was the comeback against Chelsea. What a game that was.
Fantastic game, and it really gave some life to United's sort of momentum through the late winter and going into the spring, didn't it? Imagine we'd lost at Chelsea, and it wasn't that far after the Newcastle and Blackburn games, and the cup loss thrown in there as well to Liverpool. That would have been a pretty devastating period, wouldn't it, if we hadn't got a point out of that?
Absolutely, and it had a couple of really nice moments. One, the Chicharito header, which was played in super slow motion a few times on Sky and looked absolutely incredible. And when the ball comes to Chicharito, he's on his own in the middle of the 6-yard box, and it looks like Chelsea defenders are the most idiotic defenders in the world. And whilst that might be true on a personal level, what had actually happened is he had properly murked them. He had murked them up a treat by stopping his run and then starting it again. You'd think maybe defenders could work out that was going to happen, but that was an incredible moment. And of course, save of the season by a mile. Mata basically scored a free kick, but then somehow De Gea found a way to reverse time, get the ball to come out of the net, wipe everyone's memories using one of them things off Men in Black, and then make it look like he'd saved the ball, because that's the only explanation for what happened.
Yeah, he defied physics, didn't he, to get that ball out. Great save, and it's the save that has made De Gea's season and possibly his United career, and he says it filled him with confidence, and it's easy to overplay stuff like that, of course. There's a lot more goes into making the United career, but it's something that gave him confidence at a time when Anders Lindegaard got injured as well, and it's really made the back end of the season. I imagine those two things hadn't happened. Mata scores that goal, United lose. De Gea doesn't get that confidence, that Anders Lindegaard still gets injured, and then we'd have had a really big problem with the keeper for the rest of the season.
And potentially beyond. Not to wish to overstate it, but if he'd had a run of 5 games in a row after that, because he was real shaky in the first couple of months of the season. He really looked really worried at one point. And I think the fact that he sort of spoken about how much confidence that Mata goal gives him sort of proves the point that he was really genuinely worried at that point, that he needed that massive confidence boost to make him feel like, okay, I can do this, I can be the Man United goalkeeper. And one thing I'm not worried about going into next season is the number 1 shirt.
No, not at all. I think United have invested very wisely there. You can question Jones and Young for sure. There are still question marks, but I don't think there's a question mark over De Gea anymore. I think we've got a very good quality keeper, and the question mark is at what point does he head back to Real Madrid?
You say Jones. You've been very bullish about Jones at various different times in this season. Are you feeling a bit more concerned about that now then?
Well, I'm concerned because I think what he really needs next season is to just play in one position. And unfortunately, I don't think that'll happen because Ferguson absolutely loves a player who can play in lots of different positions. So I think we'll still see Jones playing centre, mostly right, and sometimes in central midfield.
He loves a player that can play in lots of different positions, like George from Of Mice and Men loves cute little bunny rabbits. It's like, it's not a healthy love. You know, he's perfectly prepared to destroy a person's career because he really likes the fact that they can play in multiple positions.
I have to say, I'm not sure I subscribe to this notion that this is great. It's a great part of their education. I don't know about that. I don't know of too many world-class players who play in 4 or 5 different positions all the time.
Yeah, no, and what happens potentially is that players who could become world-class become instead very useful utility players.
Just look at John O'Shea. Remember him dancing down the wing, nutmegging people all the time. Next, Roberto Carlos, but, you know, Fergie moved him around the pitch and he became the next Ralph Milne.
No, he didn't. No, he did not. You cannot equate John O'Shea and Ralph Milne. That is really, really unfair. Although he did let us down and not chuck the ball in the net loads of times. He managed to get himself injured and subbed off against Sunderland. This was at the point at which City were winning. I think it was just all too much for Shazy. You know, he couldn't bear to see us suffer like that.
Yeah, good. Agent Shazy.
Really nice moment, the United fans. Perhaps totally unsurprising, the United away fans, given their extraordinary performances at times this season. But the blasting out of the Wes Brown song, followed by the blasting out of the John O'Shea song, when everything was all to play for, it was so tense. But they weren't gonna not salute the departed heroes.
Yeah, very, very nice moment, yes.
Talking of departed heroes, and earlier also talking about shirt numbers that set up for next season, a great folk hero of Manchester United, a man who scored the last-minute winner in a derby, which surely is enough for any player to go down in legend, has left the club, and I know that you're really sad because you had all your signs ready for your Carrington picket. The number 7 shirt's free at last! Free at last! Michael Owen's left.
Yes, after an outstanding 3-year period in which Michael Owen has scored 17 goals in 54 appearances, most of them against pretty average opposition. I think in truth he scored the 1 goal against any real quality, and that was a fine goal at that, wasn't it, against City in the derby, and of course he got one in the Carling Cup final as well. He's gone away with some medals. We got, I don't think, an awful lot out of it, except a player who came off the bench now and again for 3 years and picked up quite a significant amount of wages. A lot of nonsense going around about he had a pay-as-you-play deal. He did not. He was on a very good wage for 3 years, and United spent quite a bit of money on a player that we probably didn't need. But there you go, he's gone. And, you know, I never thought I just never thought he was very good value because he was always going to spend a lot of time injured, and that's exactly what happened. A very funny thing today, though. Michael Owen on his official website shows he scored more goals in less games. I'm not quite sure how he worked that one out. Much in the same way that his famous brochure got a bit of PR work all over it, and I think his statistics got a bit of PR work. And I noticed a few people tweeting about his goals and games ratio at Liverpool as well in that same page is inaccurate.
He's obviously just hired Romario's PR company, hasn't he, to do that?
There was a rather cruel piece in the Fiver, the Guardian's newsletter, saying that Michael Owen has rejected the chance to play in the Championship, and that was good because the League One looks much better for him.
Harsh. Number 7, we're both Team Valencia, right? No question.
Well, I think he's earned it. I mean, a few people said to me, number 7's a shirt for an icon. And I can understand that. But you become an icon by playing really well. And Valencia's played really well. And if he is to perform as he has done in burst this season through the whole of next season, he'll have earned it even more. So, yeah, I think that's fair enough.
He has a certain level of iconic potential, Antonio Valencia does. You know, the one of the defining moments this season, as me and Sean talked about, was that smile he finally cracked in his 50-50 interview. He's a lovely chap, so give him the number 7 shirt.
At the Manchester United Awards, he was less equivocal about that and said it was definitely a goal, and all the players started laughing.
It was good. I liked it. Nice moment. Speaking of great moments that happened this season in the United Awards, something that I had completely forgotten about because it seems like such a long time ago now. I guess we haven't really talked about the Arsenal 8-2. That was a wonderful, extraordinary, bizarre, glorious occasion this season. But there was a moment at Old Trafford that maybe topped that for glorious Schadenfreude when a certain blonde bombshell bombshell dressed in blue was through on goal after beating the keeper with a stunning piece of footwork, only to shank the ball half a mile wide. Incredible scenes from Fernando Torres at Old Trafford.
Yes, poor old Fernando.
Yeah, let's hope he gets no, I can't hope he gets the win. I was glad he had his little moment in the semi-final of the Champions League, but that's enough now, Fernando. You can't have the Champions League too.
Guess we can move on from our season wrap-up there, and we need to talk the summer. But before the summer, there's Champions League, of course, and Chelsea versus Bayern. No need for us to really preview it, I don't think, but I'll be supporting Bayern.
Obviously.
I've already, I've loaded up on various Bavarian beer and might get some, Oompa Loompa girls in to celebrate with me.
I really, really, really don't think you mean Oompa Loompa girls. You mean Oompa Oompa, not Oompa Loompa are the ones off Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Well, yeah, maybe some of those too. Yeah, let's go wild. And of course, Tottenham fans, there's the Bayern Munich Supporters Club Tottenham branch now. They can only qualify for the Champions League if Bayern win. I think they will, actually. It's home advantage. Of course, they won't have the whole of the crowd, but I'm sure Bayern fans will find a way of getting a ticket, and it'll inspire the players, and I think they'll win. And I said, I was chatting about this with someone today, and I said 2-1 to Bayern.
Yeah, I've just got a feeling in my bones, I'm afraid, Tottenham fans. Not that you're listening to this podcast, because why would you? I've just got a feeling in my bones, I'm afraid, United fans, because I can't see there's many of us want Chelsea to win. Got a bad feeling about this. I think Chelsea are going to win, actually. It defies logic, because all Chelsea's best players are out, but loads of Bayern's players are out too, and Bayern just got absolutely tonked by Dortmund in the final of the German Cup.
Absolutely smashed. Of course, Shinji Kagawa scored the opening goal and set up another one with Ferguson watching.
So is he coming then, Ed?
No idea. Although it looks like he might be relatively cheap. Although I have to say, I can't see Dortmund giving him away. I think that's ridiculous. I mean, he's still got a year's left on his contract. They'll get a decent fee for him because there'll be competition for his signature. So I have no idea, but he's almost certainly more affordable than Eden Hazard and many other world-class central midfielders that we could be looking for.
Well, Eden Hazard is obviously going to Manchester City, because he said, I'm definitely going to Manchester, I'm just not going to say which one yet. And nobody that's coming to United is ever going to say that. And if they do, we should boo them off the ground when they arrive, because it's a stupid thing to say and do.
Exactly. If you're coming to United, you don't cock tease.
Yeah, exactly. No, having said that, of course, if he does sign for United, I'll be like, oh yeah, we signed Eden Hazard. Very exciting. I'm not above a bit of rampant hypocrisy for the sake of footballing success.
Reverse curse of the Rantcast.
Oh yeah, there you go. We're definitely going to win the Champions League next season. All right, so I will go for 2-1, but in the other direction. I think it's Nando's night, and I don't just mean it's a night where Rio Ferdinand goes to Nando's, because every night is Nando's night. At Kumberson, coming in with another suggestion for an award. Best brand of the season, TC23. Yeah, not sure he's going to win any branding awards from the National PR Awards, if such a thing exists.
No. Get yourself fit, son. Play some football, and then you can go off with your fancy branding shenanigans.
Of course, Paul Pogba's never going to be able to do that, because he would be PP. It's not a good brand identity, I don't think.
No, certainly not. Okay, look, Comedy Award of the season goes to Roy Hodgson's England squad for the European Championship. I have to say, we spent last week or whenever it was praising Hodgson, saying he was, it's the right forward-thinking choice by the FA. He'd be interested in grassroots development and all levels of the game, not just the England squad. He's a man of experience and many cultures, and then he picks the most English squad you could possibly pick. And I know they're all English before you pipe up. But could the picks be more stereotypically English? He's clearly going to those championships just to grind out some results and hope that by lumping it forward to Andy Carroll that England managed to score a goal at some point somehow.
The non-selection of Rio Ferdinand is a disgrace. It's a national disgrace that John Terry is going to these awards, and I promise you with all my heart, I would be saying this if I was a Chelsea fan. It's absolutely despicable, and and the fact that it's resulted in Rio not going instead of him because Hodgson somehow thinks that for footballing reasons it's better to have John Terry there than Rio Ferdinand is a joke of the highest order.
I know a few of the press picked up on a line that Ferguson said in a recent interview where he said Ferdinand can play every 4 days. It's clearly nonsense, and he said that after knowing that Johnny Evans needs an ankle injury and Chris Smalling's done his groin, will be out for most of the summer, and we had word that Vidic won't be able to make the summer tour, so there's some politics behind this. Fergie didn't want Rio to go because 2 weeks previously he was praising Rio and saying what a great season he had and how he definitely should go to the European Championships. So let's not pretend it's something that it's not. Fergie is never a fan of international football when there's Manchester United expediency in the way, is he? So that's what that was all about. And Ferdinand's had a fine season. He's experienced. He's always been a classy performer at international level. John Terry gets found out completely all the time, and aside from the fact that he's an odious of the most nature, and shouldn't be seen in a national shirt or any shirt unless it's orange or striped and has handcuffs all over it. So I said it on Twitter, I'm not going to follow this England side. For a moment there, Hodgson was appointed and he appointed Gary Neville as a coach. I thought I can almost support England again, but no, sorry. I put the word out and I asked who should I support, and about 90% of people came back and said Ireland. I suppose that's probably to do with who follows me, but I guess I'm putting my support behind Ireland and the beautiful game this summer.
Clearly reverting to the other 50% of my national heritage, and enfin, bonjour, Patrice Evra, la la la, les croissants, le café, comment vas-tu, allez les bleus, tout ça et tout ça, Zinedine Zidane et tout ça et tout ça. So I'm supporting the Frenchies with many apologies to our Irish listeners for my terrible betrayal of the good people of Ireland by supporting the French. But it's not my fault. That's where my mum's from. Can't do anything about that.
Well, you probably could.
And of course, Patrice, allez.
Adoptamum.com?
He's back at... No, I would never do such a thing. A terrible suggestion. I love Patrice Evra, so I'm very happy to support his national team, even though they've treated him abysmally. But, he still gets in the team with the crazy racist manager and all that stuff. But, it's good enough for Patrice Evra, it's good enough for me. I'm supporting the French. But yeah, the non-selection of Michael Carrick is obviously insane. I mean, it's basically Scholes and Carrick should have been England's midfield. I will accept that Scholes may have struggled, and also you might have struggled to pry him away from Alex Ferguson's cold dead fingers as he tried to stop him going to the Euros. But, the non-inclusion of Carrick, the fact that 10 years on from World Cup 2002, Lampard and Gerrard are still in the same squad. Me and you were talking on the phone yesterday. You said, well, I think he might play Gerrard out wide.
I know. It's really bizarre. I can't see England doing anything. I think they'll lose to the French and draw against Sweden and Ukraine, and they'll be out.
The big question is, of course, why hasn't he taken Darius Vassell? If he's going to just go for 2002 all over again, who's in the Trevor Sinclair role? Where's Big Danny Mills? These are the compelling questions of our time.
Heskey's probably looking for something to do this summer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm genuinely slightly shocked he's not in the squad.
And I know expectations are rock bottom, so it won't be a surprise when they are dreadful, but it is going to be really bad. Yeah, it's going to be pretty bad. If you're a big England fan and you really think there's a chance, you might want to just flick through a couple of matches of Spain or Germany's national team and see what you think after that. Well, it's not just the quality. I mean, they're clearly going to play it fairly direct as well. I mean, there's no creativity in central midfield at all. There's nothing. I mean, they're all functional. Gerrard is a pretty functional player these days. Lampard doesn't burst ahead of the ball anymore. Milner, extremely functional. They're all functional. And massively dysfunctional at the same time, ironically. So there you go. It's not... Talking of irony, Theo Walcott's family said they won't go to Ukraine for fear of racism. Well, yeah, of course, John Terry's in the squad. Yeah, you've been working on that one, haven't you? That's a crafted little work, that is. So I guess that brings us to the actual end of season 3 of the Rantcast. We're going to be back in the summer with the Euros. We haven't worked out the exact dates, but I think basically every Friday during the Euros we're going to have a show. Then we'll be back on the last Friday before the season starts next season. Honestly, this has been an absolutely extraordinary season for me and Ed. I mean, it's a real shame that
it didn't end with United winning the title, obviously, but our listenership has more than quadrupled during the course of the season. By some metrics, we have about 8 times as many listeners as we did at the end of last season. We cannot thank you enough for listening, commenting on the website, sending us nice tweets, writing nice reviews on iTunes. A few of you have been extraordinarily generous in terms of donations, which is very much appreciated. unitedrant.co.uk/donate. If you want to chuck us a few quid over the summer, we'll spend it on the show, basically. That's what the money's gone on so far. The reviews on iTunes are super helpful to us, and anyone that's written us a nice review on iTunes has probably earned us about 5 or 10 listeners each. Anyone that's ever said to a mate, oh, by the way, this is a really good United podcast, check it out. It's just super cool. Other United podcasts have been really supportive of us. A big shout out to the boys at Seven Cantonars, Office_Monkey and Yoki_. Brilliant stuff. And the Can They Score podcast, nice enough to have me on at Can They Score, at Tom Patterson, and their rotating cast of guests. It's just been an absolute treat. So we'll definitely be back next season to do this all again. And we very sincerely cannot thank you enough for giving us your ears for an hour once a week. It's super generous, and as I've said many times, these are the conversations that Ed and I would be having anyway, so the fact that people actually want to listen to them is brilliant.
Yeah, and thank you from me as well. It's been great fun, lots of hard work. We've had some laughs, we've had some difficult moments. We've come out with no trophies, but we've come out with a whole season worth of podcasts. Go back and listen to them all. I did get an email from someone the other day who said he'd just listened to 6 hours worth of the podcast in a row.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome.
I don't really want our listeners ending up in sporting chants for weird addictions. We have enough of them of our own here.
There's worse things to be addicted to than the Rantcast. And on that note, I would like to leave you in a controversial manner with a big grin on my face, singing, as I always do from time to time, with a lead-in to what will undoubtedly be...
You're not Noel Coward, you know.
No, it's true. A lead-in to what I think we've basically officially decided is now the ongoing theme tune to the Rantcast. We've been changing it season on season, but this is it now for us, I think. All together now. Now football is a pleasant game, played in the sun, played in the rain, but the team that gets me excited is Manchester United.
You got me excited, I tell you.
Thank you very much. We'll be back for the Euros and then back next season.
We'll see you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.